Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I will be showing you tuples in Python. So a tuple is very similar to a list in Python. They basically have the same concept behind them. They're used to store different types of data. However, the difference between a tuple and a list is that with a tuple, you cannot change the elements inside of it. So once you create a tuple, you cannot change the elements. With the list, you can change the elements as much as you want, however many times you want to, but tuples are generally used when you have some data that does not need to be changed or want to be changed. So let's get into working with tuples. Now, as I mentioned before, tuples are about exactly the same as lists, so this video will not be that long as we're just going to show you how to simply create tuples, work with tuples, and show you the difference between the tuple and the list. So first, creating a tuple. Here is what an empty tuple would look like. Basically, we could say tuple 1 is equal to empty parentheses. Now, empty parentheses is a empty tuple. Tuples are represented by parentheses, where lists are represented by brackets. So you just need to remember the difference between the two. The way you name them both are the same, but one is using a bracket and one is using parentheses. So you just have to remember that. Now, let's say we're going to have a tuple with letters. Then we can say letters is equal to A, B, and C. So that's two different types of tuples. So if we want to print them out, we say print. Then you would use the print statement, place the tuple name inside of it. So tuple 1, and we'll say print letters. And let's just go ahead and test that out. And this is just simply creating simple tuples and printing them to the user. So as you see, the empty tuple has nothing in it, and then the other tuple with the letters printed out the letters. So with tuples, you can also have tuples with mixed data types. So for example, we can say tuple with mixed data types. Let's say mixed equals 1, 1, high, all right, so that would be a tuple with mixed information, and of course to print it out, print mixed, and click run, and then you should see the mixed data coming out. So it doesn't matter what's stored inside of the tuple, you can have anything you want. You can also nest information inside of the tuple as well. So for this one, I'll start another block of code. So a tuple, you can have stuff inside of it. So we'll put here, we'll say hi. Then we'll put another tuple. We'll put 1, 2, 3. Here we'll do bye. And then we'll do another tuple. We'll say A, B, C. And although you have here a nested tuple, we have a tuple inside of a tuple. You can also nest lists inside of it as well, or dictionaries. So in that case, we'll do 1 or 10, 20, and 30 here. And then you can also just do a simple example of a dictionary here. So that would be our nested tuple with a bunch of information. We have a dictionary, we have a list, we have 2 tuples and 2 strings. And I'm going to go to the end of this, and then we can just print it out. Print in. And there you have it. Here is our simple tuple. Now, using this tuple, we'll try to see or work with different things within the tuple. So, in this case, let's say we want to access something outside of the tuple or access something from inside of the tuple. So here we can start writing some code, accessing items from tuple. And in here, you would need to use indexing. So for that example, let's say we want to access different things from the tuple. We could say item 1 is going to equal, then we will put in and give it the index. So we'll say 0. Item 2 is going to equal in 1. And then we'll say item 3 is going to equal in 2. And we'll just use that. So simply, now that we have that, if you say print one of those items, so we'll just say print item 3, then you should see that information come out, which is by. So these are storing the items in variables. So that's how you would store items in variables, and then you can print them out. Now you can also just do this in a print statement. So you could have just said print in 4, and then that will give you what's at that position. So here you see that's 10, 20, 30, the list. And then of course, let's say you didn't know that that was a list. If you wanted to figure that out, you could say type of in4, then click run, and then it tells you that it is a list. So in case you need to know the type, it will tell you what the type is. So that is simply how you can work with the tuple to access elements and then figure out types in case you need to work with it in other areas inside of your code. So this is very similar to what was covered in list. As I mentioned, they're both the same. You could also do negative indexing as well. So in this case, we could say we want to print in -1. So this would be printing last element. Then we could say print and just do a random index value, so -3. And then let's go ahead and run that. All right, so here we have our last item, and here is our item that is at -3 index. And if you look here, that's 0, 1, 2, 3. That's item number 3 in our tuple anyway. So in this case, it just so happened to land on the actual position it usually is, just negative. So just keep that in mind as well. You could also slice. So you can use slice indexing if you wanted to access a certain area of the tuple. So we could say that we want to create, let's say L or items is going to equal in of 1 and 4. Then we'll say print items. Run that. And then here you see that we have a sliced tuple. So this is going to store a new tuple. And we know that because if you look here, the parentheses are around this. So it's just creating a smaller tuple from the bigger tuple that we have. And now it is stored in items. And of course, you could use slicing now that items is saved to slice inside of the smaller tuple. But that's just an example of how you can use slicing to your benefit. Now that we have that, how about if we wanted to see how many items are in our tuple? So for this, I'm just going to copy our tuple from here. And I'm going to start a new block of code just so it's not so congested. I'm going to paste it there. And so now we have a tuple to work with, which is in. So let's say we want to use some tuple methods. The first one we'll use is count. So that's going to help us see how many items are in the tuple. So we'll say for this one, we'll say print, or actually let's do tuple count is equal to in dot count. So count is actually going to be used to actually let you know how many items of the same, we'll say, are the same in tuple. So in this case, it's just going to count how many items of that actual instance there are. So if we say hi, then we say print tuple count, then we'll run it. And then you see it says 1. That's because there's one hi inside of our tuple. If we were to add another hi, and close that off, click run, now you see it went up to 2. So it will continue to go up and up depending on how many of that item are in the tuple. So do not get count and length confused. You can use length to tell you how long the tuple is. And that's the one that will show you how many items are in the tuple. So in here we could say length equals len of n, and we could say print. For this I'll use the f string, so f, the tuple has length items, and click run here, and then it will tell you how many items the tuple has. So those are some methods that you can do as well. You could also use index, which will tell you the first occurrence of a specific item in the list. So in that case, we can do index, and here tells the position of the first So in here we have two highs. So let's say we want to see where that first high happens. And in that case, you could say here, first high equals, then in that case, you would put in dot index. Then you tell it what you're looking for. We're looking for high. So then we can do another print statement. Print is, we'll put here, first high. So that's just a simple print statement that will tell us the first place that high is going to appear in the position. And clicking run, it tells us the first place it appears is at the 0 position, which is true because here you have it at the 0 position. Now, if we wanted to test it with by, I'll change this, or let's actually just copy this, and then we can test it the same way. Oops, didn't copy it. All right, then I'll change this to first by, change that to by, all right, and click run. And then there you have it. It tells you that our first by happened at the position of 3, which is the correct case. So those are some simple methods you can use for this example. You could also use a for loop to go through all of the items as well to print them out one at a time. So I will show that in another block of code. So let's start that. We'll say names is equal to Mark, Russ, Ashley, and we'll say Mary. So we'll do a for loop to print all items in tuple. So of course, as we used the for loops before, we could say for name in names, we want to print name. And here you go. It will print out all of the names of the tuple to the user in case you need to use them or just want to see them. We could also check to see if a certain item is in the tuple using the in keyword. So in this case, we could say print Adam in names. And if you click run, then you should see false because Adam is not in names. However, if you were to switch it to Mark, so print Mark in names and click run, then you would see true. So that's how you would check if the item is in a tuple. And then you could use it in an if statement. So you could have said if Mark is in names, print I know Mark, else print no info. So if you click that, then here you see it says I know Mark. So you could use it like this in a print statement to just print out true or false, or you can use it as a condition as an if statement. So you could do this, or you could have did another elif that would check for another name, etc., etc. So that is just checking to see if an item is in a tuple. And overall, like I said, there's pretty much what you can do with the tuple you can do with the list, except for adding and removing. Generally, you don't want to do that because you don't want to change the list, or you don't want to change the tuple. So generally, if you're trying to change information, then just use the list instead of a tuple. For example, if we knew we had 4 people, then we should just use a tuple. But if you didn't know how many people you had, then you could use a list. So a tuple is really if you know exactly how many items are going to go inside of the tuple, and a list is if you're unsure, and that allows you to add and remove. So the tuple is just better for permanent situations. But other than that, pretty much majority of the things you can do with the list, you can do with the tuple, other than the fact that a tuple does not change. So that is basically a intro or introduction into tuples, showing you how to use them, showing you what you can do with them. Hopefully it wasn't too bad or confusing. The confusing part will just be remembering the difference between the list and the tuple, but hopefully these examples were simple enough to understand. So my goal for you is to just have you try this out on your own, see what you can do with it, see how well it registers, and see where you can take your coding journey from here. So until next time, remember to keep coding, remember to keep getting better, and remember to keep investing your time into coding, and it will all come to you one day. So until then, see you in the next video.